Show on the road. Should have a good transition just to smooth out right, go right into the stream, but I have just this thing on well, that's where it restarted. So let's get this up here and ready to go. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the stream. Yeah, that's fine, I guess. I can maybe move this over here. Where we got? We got this thing like that. Maybe it's a good idea. If I do this, if I hold down there, man, that's not what I'm going to do either. I guess that's going to be how it's going to be. All right, again, welcome everybody to the stream. My name is Mark Spatz, UAV Tech, of course, and we will get going on checking out some black box log, answering any questions you guys throw in there and then the chat. I did have a submission, but if you are interested in troubleshooting any of your specific problems, because that's what we're here for, not anything I'm going to have with my quads on at for today's adventure. But throw a link in the description here, or you can go on my Discord and show you that. See if I can get this all squared away. And then I need to change this over here to this display. There you go. But here's the Discord, and we have this office hours group right here for patrons. If you are interested in, if you're not a patron and you have something, you can throw that under the general tuning for this live stream, and I'll take a look at it down here at the bottom, and that's where we're at. But again, throw in the chat or whatnot. So without any further ado, we can get kind of right into what I got so far. And what we have here in the office hours is this. Could you take a look at a log for a new prototype I'm working on? And this is the link to the log, which I already downloaded it from there. It's a light 5-inch running on 25 millimeter all-in-one, and I got a massive noise on the pitch axis. I suspect the 2 millimeter bottom plate is vibrating, but it's all below 20%. All below, excuse me, 20% throttle. That's interesting. There are some pics to give you an idea. So let's take a look through this thing and see what we got. So I looked at it a little bit earlier. Let's see if I open the browser, if that's a little bit bigger. Yeah. So open that in the browser. Kind of look at this a little bit more. It looks like it has a kind of a two-part frame here. You guys should be able to see that. Yep. And we got this front end. Looks like it's running the DJI 03 unit. Looks like it's on end. So that's interesting build for sure. We got room in here for the camera plate. Got this front nose piece, and then it's just a bottom plate from the back part, looks like. I was looking at this earlier, and it appears to me it'd be a toilet tank kind of battery mounting on that. We got some other pics here as well, so let me, I guess, close and maybe just leave that like that. Get some other pics here, give you an idea. You can see, yeah, there's the DJI air unit right there. So that's pretty cool. You can see that, get a little closer view how that's mounted into there from the top perspective. Very thin. It's a very thin build, yeah, horizontally. That's cool. It's like he has 5-inch motors. Go down through here. And just another perspective on it. Kind of more of the same. Rear plate looks like I don't know where the flight controller is. I'm assuming it's under the mid plate here, so that's the weight. Yeah, toilet tank. Yep, JEPA toilet tank. And did the OSD HD for 4.4 get fixed? So one of the questions on here, just to take it real quick. So the HD OSD in Betaflight 4.4 works. I think the DJI Air unit, they're waiting for a firmware update. The 03 Air unit, it works with like Walk Snail and HD0 and stuff like that. So I think the the Air unit, again, the 03, the newest DJI Air unit, waiting for an update from DJI on that. I know Sugarcane is working with them. Last I heard, the ball's in their court. That's where that's at. All right, so getting a look at this log. Pop that sucker open here and see what we see. course, the download folder is going to take a while. Why would the download folder just open right up? I mean, it's not like it's just a folder right on the C drive like any other folder. Jesus. All right, while that's popping open, let's see if we got anything in the chat. Really nice is centered on. So go up top here. Bad for Life talks about, RC smoothing off and using no feed forward, and Bad for Life, and he's loving that feel. So if I go back over here to the live stream chat, as that's kind of getting loaded up. Yeah, and you guys should be able to see that up there, right? Which right there, that one. Yeah, and you don't even need to, if you have RC smoothing off, you don't even need to turn feed forward off anymore. It will work. Feed forward will be fine without RC smoothing. You'll just have steps, which you're going to get anyways. With RC smoothing off, you're going to get steps in your P term, which is fine. I mean, that's how Flight 1 was. Nobody complained about it. So, yeah, check it out. Even if you feed forward on, feed forward off, RC smoothing off reduces a decent amount of delay in your inputs. So it reduces an entire frame of delay. So if you have a 2 millisecond frame rate, it's going to reduce that. It's a 4, 6, 8 millisecond frame rate. And people are talking about milliseconds of DJI latency between, feeling between 30 and 20. Well, there you go. All right, so that is opened up. Let's put back to here. I didn't see anything jump out at me in the chat. Oh, I got one here. UAV Tech, is there a way in Blackbox Explorer to allow to show 8 motors by default? Mine only shows 4, and I have to manually change it to 8 for my CineLifter rigs. Yes, you can change it. It's just a preset. So let me do that one quick, because that's an easy one. So that's a Burke 3D. Let's go back over to here. Close that down. Bring this bad boy back up top, and that's that log. So yeah, it's got a little bit of something we got going on there. Yeah, it's not ideal. Yeah, yeah, there's something to look at there. So we'll get into that in a second. What you're talking about, and I am sure I have a CineLifter log here, because I've looked at plenty of them in my day. Archive. Oh, where do I have those? Log review. That's probably right. There we go. Gab 707. You guys might have heard of him. DRL pilot. It's been on there forever. One of the most consistent DRL pilots I think there is. Did a little tuning for him in his thick. Let's see. Not a lot though. So all right, so now we have this CineLifter, and you can see here when you go to these presets, or my presets, you can see them up here in this drop down list. If you're not aware of those, you go to UAV Tech, the UAVtech.com/blackbox, and then there's a video on the presets, and you can download them there. So download them there. I'm assuming that's what you have, and I'm not too sure if they're not kind of somewhat baked into Blackbox anymore. I don't know about that, because I use them all the time, so it just always seem to be there. So I don't know if they're baked into Blackbox or just my system. They're just kind of integrated in. I don't know. But what he's seeing here is I just have the 4 motor outputs right here. So what we do for that is typically what I do is I just remove, go down here. I kind of did that quick. You go into graphics, setup here, go down to here, and just hit remove graph. And then I will come back up to the top, hit add graph. I would use the newest one if you're on the latest beta flight, and then not the legacy, the motors here. Hit OK, and then that should give you all 8, right? So now we got all 8 motors there, and you can see them in the graphic up here. Now this graphic, I don't know if you're going to be able to change that graphic to be, I doubt you have an octo like that where they're evenly spaced. I guess you have custom craft here. I guess we could do that. Does that work? Yeah, it doesn't seem to work though. So octo flat 8, and that's what we want. We want this. This is what the cine lifter is. That's correct, but it doesn't actually do it. That's what I remember experiencing before. So you have to deal with that. That's honestly a bug. So if anybody is caring to do a pull request on that, that's not supposed to do that. Let me see if it's a consistent bug across the board. So if I go to bicopter, let's see what that does. Yeah, that one works. Well, that's unfortunate. So it's just the octo flat plus. And it's still not right. Oop, that's not what I wanted. So yeah, your image up there is not going to work out. But you can get the motor traces up here. So then what I recommend doing is looking on this drop down here. And then if you want to replace and always have the 8, you would hold down control, or I'm sorry, hold down shift and press 4. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to replace mine. But you'd hold down shift and press 4, and then that will replace this one. So then that will then always have the 8 motor output selection there. And then you can do the same. I guess that's the only one that has. I think that's the only one in the trace template setups. Oh, this one does 6, which is kind of a oddball one. But yeah, that's how you do that. You can see I didn't do it now. I went back to the 4. So that's how you do that. I don't have a preset for the MOB. I think you mean MOB Light 6 whoop. But I have presets for whoops, and that's going to be close enough. You don't typically have to get so specific with a preset. A preset's just a glorified default, right? So any whoop default, and especially in the whoop class, is probably going to be fine. So check the whoop preset out. Okay, getting back to this log. I have this one. So this is what we got from that quad that we were just looking at, which is, again, this one, just to throw a reminder on there for everybody. And yeah, a lot of high frequency stuff here. So let's check this out. So the first thing I would do, we got 4.4 on it, AK logging rate. PID loop looks like it's 2K. That's good for the logging loop rate. We're going to run a spectrum analysis here by clicking this up top here. And then we can look at that for pitch, roll, and yaw. Looking a little rough. My initial gut reaction is this area here. That's not looking too good down in here. This should be like a trough here. So that's our biggest area of concern. The stuff up here, I usually don't get too worried about because the filters take care of this stuff. These high peaks, resonances up here, or high peak noise. So we can get a sense too by looking at this. Basically, if you're kind of new to logging, you can see how I just opened it up. He did have the debug mode gyro scaled enabled, so you can get the raw noise. That's the raw vibrations. We're on our noise plots, which is down here at the bottom. And if you click on these legend, it performs this spectrum analysis, which is spectrum analysis is just takes these little vibrations that you see here, and it plots them so you can see the and one oscillation is 1 hertz. So it's 1 oscillation per second. So if you have 2 oscillations per second, that's 2 hertz. 3 oscillations, 3, you get the idea. So this is 200. So that's 200 oscillations per second. It plots those, and then the magnitude of those are the higher this line is, the higher this noise is, that's the higher magnitude of the oscillation. So you can see we have a bunch of oscillations. You can hold down the shift key. You can see we have a bunch of oscillations from 230 to 270. And then if you click on this gyro scaled, or this gyro, I'm sorry, you can actually see after the filters, what effect that has. We have the filters doing their thing. Still a bunch of stuff's getting through up here. It's crunching that down there at the 200 hertz. These plots tell you a bunch of stuff. So if I go to here, so you can see like where the low pass filters are starting and ending. So you have your low pass 1 filter going from 300 to 600 hertz. So if I put my cursor on here, you can see 300 to 600. My D term is 82 to 165. And then I has a static notch filter with the center at 180 and the lower cutoff at 140. You can see that plotted here. And if you keep, like I said, hold down shift, you can kind of see that. So a bunch of noise is still getting through on the roll axis. Let's look at pitch. And look at after the filtering. And even more is getting through on the pitch axis. So let's look at that. My yaw, and then yaw after. So yaw isn't too bad. And we can go to here, and then I can switch up to this stick tracking, and you can kind of get a sense for the D term. So you can see how those vibrations are still getting through the filtering. It's making the yellow here is the D term. So you can kind of, we have the PID loop that controls the quad. The yellow, the D term is what really goes crazy with noise getting through. The yaw axis doesn't have, usually we don't have the D term turned on. So in Black Box Explorer, we can always hit the H key, and then we can pull up, and this has a bunch of the settings that are in the flight controller. So you can see the D term is set to 0 here for the yaw. So you can see that any noise getting through on the yaw typically is not an issue. The reason we don't use D term on yaw is because yaw is so slow, because it's not a thrust vector. It's really relying on the prop drag and moment of inertia, the bells spinning and the prop spinning to kick it into yaw move. And since it's not a thrust vector, it's not really fast enough to need the D term. So why have this issue also on this axis when it really doesn't even need the D term at all? It's too slow to really react. So yaw is fine. That's not really a problem. But you can see that roll and pitch. You were saying that pitch is worse, but it seems to me it's a roll and pitch issue. So let's kind of go through this. The props look decent. They don't look like Racer Star props or anything like that. But it is a whole bunch of noise on this thing. So I guess a couple places my brain goes to, and that's I guess why you're here, is that when I look at the spectrograph, and if I go, I shouldn't have clicked on that. If I go back to the 0 noise plots, click on this. Generally when you see this noise level, this ambient noise level down here, pretty high, that's indication of like electrical noise coming through. Same thing here. You can see it on the roll and the pitch. And you're really looking for this area between 50 and say 150 hertz. Whenever you see that having a decent amount of noise and vibrations there, that's generally not from the motors. It's too slow, honestly, to be the motors. The reason you will have a lot of issue there with this is because it's not filtered a lot. So again, high frequency vibrations, that's usually attributed to your motors and your props because it's fast enough. I mean, those are spinning pretty fast. The faster they spin, the higher it gets. You'll have these peaks here for resonances of the frame. But when you see this stuff down here, that's kind of indication of electrical stuff, generally in my experience. So let's flip this to another view. Instead of frequency based, we can do frequency versus throttle. So this is just frequency. We're gonna hit this drop down here for frequency versus throttle. And we can kind of look at it this way. Now this just plots it kind of a different way. This will plot it where we have our frequencies down here, but it's not just like magnitude. This adds like a third thing. Before it was just frequency on the bottom and magnitude. Now it's frequency on the bottom, throttle on the y-axis, like what throttle percent you're at, and then the magnitude of the vibration is in the color gradient in the waterfall graph. So the closer to white, the more is the magnitude. So let's take the scaling, bring that back. And you can see here, doesn't actually look too bad on these plots, but you could see that it was there before. Yeah, you can see kind of we have 3 resonances here. So this band, that when you see this band here, this is the motor RPMs coming through there. And when you see stuff like this, this looks like a frame resonance, and then this is the, should be the 250. Yeah, it's not quite a harmonic though. So a harmonic is if like this was at 125-ish, right? This should be at 250 or like 180. This is more like 250. So this vibration, the second harmonic of that, like the second ripple, like when you throw a rock in the pond, the second ripple would be this area in here, and you can see there's a bunch more here as well. So let me look at this a little bit more. Kind of see what is our trouble on this. I guess one question I have here is this on 24 or 48K PWM? So generally you want to run the lowest, or is it like by, is it variable PWM where it's 24 kilohertz down at the bottom and by RPM up top? So what's your ESC settings? Default? Did you set it specifically? Because what you can do to detect if it's a electrical noise issue, which I think you have some of that issue in this. Another question is it an all, like you have a 20 by, oh, I ignored that. Yeah, it's a 20 by 20, 25 all in one. What specific all in one? So in my experience, all in one flight controllers for whoops, fine. For 5 inches, you got to be picky. They are tricky. Like HDLRC does not have a great track record in my experience with helping people on all-in-one flight controllers. And then you throw on top of that, it's a 25 by 25, so that it's compressed even more. That's kind of building a case here. I think there might be some electrical issues, which also kind of pain in the butt with all-in-ones is you can't put extra capacitors on it, like in the flight controller. So like what is this capacitor? It looks to me like a 1,000 farad, microfarad, sorry, 1,000 farad would be pretty big. 1,000 microfarad capacitor. Looks like to me it's 35 volt. 35 volt, 1,000 microfarad capacitor. I would assume that's on the back battery lead. So it's Blue Jay 24K. I need a bigger cap. Hack RC 148 35 oh 460. Okay. So I was wrong. So I would go If you can, if you have one, I would go at least 1,000 microfarad. I would, if you have a 50-volt one, I guess what you running 6S? I missed that up there. It might be up there. I assume you're running 6S. Let's see it. If you're running 6S, if you have 1,000, I think the 50 is kind of overkill. 50 volts. It makes a pretty big cap, so that's take it or leave it. But since we're trying to troubleshoot, yeah, if you got a 35-volt, 1,000 microfarad on hand, yeah, I would just throw that on if you have it on hand. I would then change your PWM frequency to 48K locked. Know that? No variable, because the variable is going to keep you down at 24 anyway. So put the, if it's Blue Jay, it probably has the setting where it's like the low and the high. Put them both at, I think, maybe it doesn't do that. I can't remember if Blue Jay has variable yet. I think it just 48K fixed PWM frequency, and then redo a flight that's similar. It doesn't have to be like the same pattern, but I mean, like in this flight, it looks like you're, you know, uh, it looks like you're giving it hell. Normal. I mean, it's you're doing some freestyling and stuff. I mean, I don't have any HD, but just looking at the spikes and the motors, and these are the you can see what throttle percentages you're at right here. So I would give it a flight that's like this, with like the amount of throttle and your whatever you were doing out there. It doesn't need to be the same pattern, but don't just go out and do a little line of sight flips and rolls and then compare that to this. It needs to be something similar in character. With the higher cap and the 48K PWM, I would look at that. And here's some other evidence. So let's look in this further. So I see some other stuff now. Yeah, this is, you got electrical things here that are your problem. So let's look at that. This is it's definitely an electrical issue. The first thing I might do, just because it's so simple, is just change the PWM frequency setting to 48K. Just because it's easy. You don't have to solder, you don't have to take anything apart. That is likely going to be the biggest impact. It's going to make this better. I don't think it's going to make it go away, but it's going to make it better. A little story. I received a 3.5-inch, 20 millimeter, all-in-one HDLRC. I received 2 quads for tuning. One was on KISS, all-in-one. One was on an HDLRC with Betaflight, all-in-one. The KISS flight controller was fine. It just needs some tuning. The HDLRC one was a wreck. Changed the caps. It made a little betterment around the edges, but the biggest thing was I changed to 48K fixed PWM on that with the all-in-one HDLRC. It was a 20 by 20 stack, and it did not completely solve the electrical noise issues, but it went away enough that if you weren't looking in black box, you wouldn't notice. I was able to then tune that, sent it back, and it still had electrical noise issues, like when you would see these spikes here. Basically what's happening is you can see in the motor output commands, like you're doing a forward pitch move. You are at full rate, 0 throttle. So look right here, full rate, stick forward, 0 throttle. So the motors are at idle. And something is going on in your gyro that it's causing your motors, look at these motors up here. Now this is not the actual RPM, but is the commands from the flight controller going to it. It's causing them to spike, to command a full throttle, 0 throttle, full throttle, 0 throttle, just going through the forward roll. That's a dead tail. That's a dead giveaway that there's an electrical noise issue. That should not be happening at all. This should be like, these motor commands should be like down here, smooth as silk. And then you should see spikes here to initiate the move and spikes to arrest the move, and that's about it. But through the move, it should be almost zero vibrations. So that's all electrical stuff. That's the issue there. So long story short, with that other gentleman's quad, just in that change, um, we had a little bit of this, like you'd see the spikes going to initiate the move, and you'd get a little bit of these spikes. It'd almost be like it would start here and then end here. Like there'd just be a little bit of spiking like this. And then at the end, there would be a spike to arrest the move, and then you'd have a little bit of the jittery, spiky thing here. But again, without black box, you wouldn't notice it. It actually flew better. Betaflight flew better than Kiss then, even with that still that little issue. I did as much as there's just it's legacy Kiss, so you just get up against it. Just doesn't have much in the firmware, so there's only so much that you can do with it. There's like no anti-gravity stuff in it, so you know had a little bit more bobbles and stuff like that, nose bobbles, and there's something. It just the Kiss was very good. It just the prop wash on the HGLRC Betaflight. It was the same quad. I mean, it was the same. Obviously, it wasn't the same quad, but it was the same components. The 3.5 inchers. The Betaflight prop wash was just a little bit better. Not a ton, but just a little bit better. You could see it around when you're really giving it to it. You could see it around the edges just a little bit better. So that's that. So again, probably over explain this a little bit, but I want to do that for kind of everybody on the live stream here. You know, when you see that kind of stuff, when you're doing a full rate and you see this all kinds of spikiness, and I would doubt that it's everywhere. Let's see if we can look. Now, again, I'm on the stick tracking. So our first sign of evidence, again, was when we looked at those plots and saw that how the motor noise or the vibrations was kind of high throughout the entire spectrum. If I go back to this and look here, when you see like this bass noise down here, like here, you can see how there's like kind of a base amount of noise is kind of high. It's not like it dips way down and then spikes up at these certain spots. That's a sign of electrical noise when the base level is just kind of high. That's one sign. But then when you see, but that doesn't, that's not like oh yeah, it's kind of like a sign, but it's not a dead giveaway. But then when you see, and you enter into a sharp flip or roll, and you see spiking like that, when you see your motors doing this, that's definitely them. So that's the two things coming together to kind of make me positive. And then the fix, or it will alleviate it a ton, is going to a higher PWM frequency. And then I guess I would encourage, let me go back to the Discord here. I guess I would encourage that Blue Jay just has static PWM. I'll give 48 a try. Yeah, it's easy change. So I would do that before the cap, just because it's so easy. You know, see what that is. Any idea if there's so much noise below 20% throttle, where you would expect to see less back EMF? I guess I'm trying to see where you're talking about below 20. I mean, we'd have to look at the throttle plots, right? Oh, you're talking about like down here. Like, why is this down here? It's really on the pitch, and that's what you were talking about. That's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing on the pitch, right here. Well, because the lower PWM I'm guessing here a little bit, because the lower PWM frequency gives you better motor braking at low throttle. When you're at 100% throttle, it doesn't matter if you're at your PWM frequency doesn't matter. The gates are completely open. The FETs are open. They are you know, it's doing its commutations. They're not like pulsing. See, when you're at zero throttle, you're with electricity, it's the voltage is on or off, right? So what it does is it pulses the full throttle, zero throttle, and it's doing it 24,000 times per second. Well, when you're at, let's say, 5% throttle, so it's doing that pulse 24,000 times per second when and it's the length of the pulse is shorter. I don't have a graph in front of me, but when you're at 48 PWM, the length of the pulse is higher. So lower PWM frequency gives you better motor braking torque. So your electrical surges are going to be higher at lower throttle limits. This is a guess again. Um, and when you increase the PWM frequency to 48, that will make that a little bit better. Your braking torque on your motors is going to go down. So um, technically your prop wash performance will be a little, it'd be more ideal if the quad would not have this electrical noise issue at 24 kilohertz PWM frequency, but it does. So you can either change your flight controller, which costs money, and finding an all-in-one that works with 5-inch is tricky. I have some recommendations. I made them on the Discord a little bit ago. I can pull those up. There's two, like the Beast, and there was another one. But it's tricky. But if you don't have, if your flight controller can't work at 24 kilohertz with an all-in-one flight controller, and you don't want to buy another one and go down that rabbit hole, switch to 48 kilohertz. I say to you that technically your prop wash is going to be a little worse, but at least the dang thing will fly. It's going to fly a hell of a lot better than it's flying now. I can guarantee that. Same thing with this guy, this 3.5-inch. His Betaflight quad didn't really fly at all. You go up and do a simple roll, and it would like freak out. It wouldn't like go fly away, but you could be like, whoa, that's not. I didn't command any of that. So it was kind of unflyable, not very enjoyable. You couldn't get a feel for the timing of a roll or pitch because it would kind of freak out. Now on the 48K, again, he still has a little bit of electrical thing, but you don't even notice if you don't even look at the black box. But it flies. It flies fine, and the prop wash was better than Kiss, so it's fine. So I think he's just gonna fly it the way it is. Um, Again, I would recommend, like you said, you're gonna give that 48 a try, but then don't. I guess what I would do is set it to 48, go out and fly it. Hopefully, you're like, wow, it's fixed, it's good. If you get the logs back and you're like, I see some of those spikes, then just step back a second and just say, but I don't really care. As long as it flies good in the field, who cares what the log looks like? So don't get hung up in the log. I do the flips at low throttle. Yeah, that's the other reasoning too. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you're always at very low to zero throttle when you're doing those flips and rolls. So when that's spiking like that, that's going to result in that. So it's kind of a combination of the two. That's probably why, we're seeing what I talked about is why this is spiking. Let me go over here. What I'm talking about. This here. What I talked about is why is it spiking here? It's like, well, I'm at 0% throttle. It's like, well, not really. You're at like 6%, 8% throttle because you have the hover percentage to keep the motor spinning. So they're not at zero. They're getting a lot of back EMF because of the 24K PWM frequency. And that spiking is probably what you're seeing in that plot. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that helped other people who can troubleshoot their stuff. If there is anything else on there, let me look here. Bring this up. Hopefully. Go back to the chat. How we doing on time? So we answered the whoop question, the octocopter question. Um, Lennon asks, I have a quad that flies pretty bad. The black box shows that I should lower the P term more than default. Is this normal for a 5 inch? No. Moving on. No, that's not normal. What I guess in the black box is showing you that you should lower the P term. Is he overshooting? And if that's the case, what is your um, before I say no, that is normal if it's not a powerful 5 inch. If it's kind of heavy, maybe the motors aren't um, don't produce a lot of thrust, or the props are heavy. Heavy props on there, a lot of weight on the prop itself. Then that could be the case that you might need to. And I usually don't lower the P term; I increase the D term. That's typically what I'd see there. But generally, on a high-powered 5 inch, like a racing rig, it's kind of light. Some of those racing rigs are crazy high power. 6S, it's usually not a problem. That's the other thing. Is it a low voltage battery? You're using, I would assume you're using 4S, not 6S. So it's not unheard of, but not typically. Typically, Betaflight's P terms are low. So what I would recommend doing is decreasing or turning feed forward off. Grab that stick response slider, shove it all the way down. Get that out of the picture. See if its black box is still telling you that. And if it is, I would probably go towards bumping up the D term instead of lowering the P term. See how you like that. So Brandon Bean says that the Mobeetle is a happy model, kind of like Mob Light 6, 0702 motors now. Really fun little whoop. I would say that the whoop preset should still work. I mean, that preset's not like so on the edge. But check it out. If it doesn't, probably the biggest thing you'd want to do is slide down the master slider a little bit. If it's like doesn't work at all, that might be the only thing. But the filters are pretty conservative in it. Um, and whatnot. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be the ultimate flight performance for it. If it's lighter than a normal whoop, you might be able to get some better performance out of it. You might have to lower the master down a little bit and increase the tracking slider a little bit. That might be your optimal. So it'd be like the whoop preset, but lower the master and slide up the tracking. That would be the only tweaks to that. Yeah, 600 gram. 18, that's the other thing to check. That's just kind of browsing through some of the comments here. Make just put an eye on your um, dear V. I'm back on the Discord. Just put an eye on your soldering for your cap. I think it's okay, but I have had a quad where somebody sent me and they're like, "Ah, it's flying like crap," and it was a 5 inch, seemed okay, cap seemed okay, but had some electrical noise. Here, the soldering on the capacitor, which is a pain in the butt, right? Those leads coming in from the battery, and to get that soldered and melted nice, you really have to crank the soldering iron up, have a big tip, and getting those, like having the wire on there and then putting the capacitor directly on there, right? I'm sure we've all been there. It's kind of like a pain to get that all melted together. That wasn't, it was melted good enough, but it was, well, it wasn't melted good enough. I should back up. The joint kind of came apart, so I resoldered that and it was fine. So it was just that got loose. I'm sure it wasn't loose when he first flew it, but something I always double check. Cap directly aside right now. Yeah, yeah. If you're obviously going up to the 48K, if that makes everything better, then it will. I I'm not guessing at this point that it's an electrical problem. 3 a.m. in India. Good Lord. Go to bed. Yes, overshooting. Any questions? Hope I'm not asking too many questions, but is there an update to increase black box resolution? What advantage does this bring? Is there a specific scenario that would help in troubleshooting and tuning? Burke 3D asks. So there was an update in Betaflight 4.4 to increase the resolution or the samples basically. I have not run the new log, so I'm a little fuzzy on it because if you set your black box to the same logging rate as your PID loop, it gets a sample every PID loop. So how can you get more than that? Um, so I haven't looked into the detail, but let's back up from that a second. You ain't gonna need it for tuning or filter stuff. Um, the reason that was implemented is because they were really trying to thread the needle on jitter, RC signal jitter. Um, and I guess he was getting to the spot where stuff was, when you get into timing and tasks hitting in between the different loop cycles, or like I said, I didn't really look into this, but I know it was related to Ghost. It wasn't just a feature added for general purpose. It was added specifically to work on the Ghost module and protocols and kind of optimizing that. So again, the the logging rate that I recommend people use is 2 kilohertz. Usually your PID loop's 3.5. You can see on here. Well, this is 8K, so this one's 8. Well, I don't have it up. You're not seeing my screen, but this one's 8K uh, um, PID loop or gyro PID loop, and then the logging rate is a quarter of that, so 2K. And you can confirm the same, but if you go to like the noise plot one, just click any of these. I don't need to really go to the noise plot one. And then when you come in, you can see the frequency graph, or here, you can see that the 1,000, I'm gonna move down here, right here, you'll see it says it's 1,000. That's always half the sampling rate. So just by seeing that's 1,000, I know, and you can obviously 8 divided by 4 is 2 as well. But that's also, that being 1,000, it's always half the logging rate. So you can see we're not even logging at the full PID loop rate here. And we could. It doesn't really give us any more data. When you're really looking at the quad's motion, like when you're PID tuning, you're trying to see like how well it's following your sticks and things. So like big motions that are down in like this is capturing vibrations up to 1,000 times a second. The fastest vibrations that have to do with motion is prop wash, which goes up to like 80 hertz, mostly like 40 to 50. Most quads 80 if you like have one that you tuned it and it's on it and it's a high speed racing rig and you can hear it flutter but you don't see the camera move. Like I hear it fluttering around the turns, but that camera is just right on it. That's like 80 hertz because it's above the frame rate of the camera. So you don't need to catch more vibrations than that. So cool feature added for troubleshooting stuff, but no, I don't think it's any benefit to log at that faster rate. See if there's anything else in the Discord and see if anybody emailed me anything. Email. Discord stuff. All right. All right. Nobody's reaching out. It's fine. What else we got here? DMA issue with this receiver and S1 Super B boards using it. So props off. Do you this theirs? Do you know if there's a DMA issue with the SPI receiver on an S1 Super board using the ICM 24688P gyro? I have no idea. I would, if you're having issues with the board, reach out to the manufacturer. If not, put it maybe in a request or go on to another good resource. I think for that kind of question, just to throw it out there in general, is go to the beta flight Discord. We got the beta flight Discord here. That would be something I would definitely consider throwing out in general. Or, of course, the beta flight Facebook group would be another good spot for that. But I'm not sure. That's very specific. It seems like it's specific to one board. Brandon Beans, UAV Tech. Can we add some kind of anti-aliasing filter to the black box log to prevent aliasing noise effect from sampling over the Nyquist limit? I don't know enough about anti-aliasing filters to know if it will work here. You're talking about so that the plots go up higher, go up to like 2 kilohertz if you're sampling at 2 kilohertz. I guess. But then you're like filtering the. I don't know if that gives you any advantage because we want to see that vibration though. So if you filter it, you're not going to really see. So technically, what Brandon's asking is like, well, if we put the reason this plot only goes up to half, this plot right here, the reason this plot only goes up to half the loop or the sampling frequency, sorry, not this plot, not that plot. This plot? Yeah, this plot. Is because you get into these Nyquist things, anything over 1,000 hertz might be wrong. So they just don't show it. We could filter that to get rid of that, but then the intent is to kind of filter that down. So yeah, we want to kind of see it. So I think it's kind of self-defeating. That's my take on it. Next beer's on me. Thanks, Burke3. Appreciate that. Super chat. What else we got here? Brandon's always got some good, always helping other people. Okay, good. Brandon, you always have tough questions. Brandon Beans, I sent you the black box log in general help Discord. Was there, is there some stuff in the Discord I should be going to? Ooh, got a tag. All right, here we go. Any general opinions on different tuning methods, like the PID toolbox basement tuning versus your own style versus Rosser's? Well, Rosser's is mine. I don't want to take away from Chris, but I'm pretty sure that's where he got it. He just does the D term first. I usually get the PD balance and then move everything up to max D. He does max D, then brings up max P, then brings up max I, which all has to do with that DPI thing that I was the first one to release content on that kind of stuff. So I think those two are the same. Between doing and Brian White, the PID Toolbox guy, I mean, we all know each other. We all talk. His tuning method, the basement tuning with just twitching back and forth, it's all based on the same fundamentals. So whether it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, you're going to get all to the same result. The key is knowing and accepting as truth, which people struggle with, that The D term, it's basically is related to the P term and the D term are related to each other. So if you have not ever seen this video and you're interested in any tuning, um, this is like, to me, like working on a car. You can't work on a car, an internal combustion engine, if you don't understand that it has pistons and they go up and down and how that force cycle process works. So this is the same thing. The DPI, I gotta go here. This DPI relationship is key. This is explains about it, how the key relationships work, filters, and the P term, then the D term affects the P term, like how much your filters will basically set how high your D gains can be. Um, it works kind of both ways. If you have if you have low vibrations, you don't have a lot of noise to deal with, you have a really tight quad, low filters allows the D gain to be higher. Now, if you have a ton of vibrations you have to deal with, you can't get to low filters. So that will limit how high this D term can be. You'll have to increase the filter amount or this thing will go crazy, and that will limit how high this can be. That amount of D term will affect how high the P term can be and the height of the gains, and then this one took a while for people to come around to, but the high the P term is will affect how high your I gains can be. And I released this video a long time ago, and I was talking with the guys in Betaflight to implement the sliders. That was my idea, and they were like, "No, that's we don't believe you." And we did. Brian White and I did all this stuff. Actually, Brian White did the actual tests. I said, "Hey, Brian," it was 2, 3 winters ago. He was up in Canada, and he's like, I'll go do it right now. And he did all the stuff. So he basically went through and did a bunch of variants. These are all different flights: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 flights, something like that. And then the biggest thing that the Betaflight, some of the Betaflight devs were contesting is that once you have those ratios set, that DPI, that you can move all them up and all them down, and your step response will not change. They did not believe that. And then after we did all this, which then they're men of science. We have the sliders, so everybody kind of got on board. So however you get to this, however, like when I do the tuning, I get the balance between the D and P, and then I, and the I, tweak it. The I has a very broad bell curve. Like it's a real, the P and the D, the balance between the two, it has a pretty tight bell curve, like where the optimal range is. You can kind of see it. Like if you go a little bit above or go a little below, like within 20, I would say within 10 points. Like, in the Betaflight, we have the values, the PID values, within a variation of 10 of those, like 40 to 60, the gains there, so 10 on either side, you will see the flight change performance. You'll see it to like overshoot and then not overshoot. Like you'll have some bounce back, and then you move either the D up or the P down, and you will see that the bounce back goes away. Either you can hear it, sometimes bounce back's hard to see or hear. You'll see it in the logs, and you'll see it. So it's a pretty tight bell curve. The I term has a really wide bell curve, like that. So you can move the I gain up 20, 30 points before you'll start to see the negative ramifications. And when you have a high power quad, you can have incredibly high I gains, and it will still be fine. When it's sluggish quads that really can't track the sticks well, then I gets a little bit more. That bell curve tightens up a little bit, like 7-inch, 8-inch quads. So anyways, long story short, I do this. Chris's method was to move this up, then set all these. I get this balance between the two. I get basically the balances of all three of them, move them up. Brian White's method of doing the the basement turn jerking back and forth, I would say it's pretty close to then he's getting the balances right, and then he's going to move them all up. So I think his and his methodology and mine, I think if I know his correctly, is he's kind of getting all the gains in proportion to each other correctly, and then he's just moving them all up at the same time, which is basically this kind of my method. But again, it doesn't really matter. It's just knowing that those relationships are. So that's that. We are over time here. Let me see if I can just go down through some logs and or questions and see what I can. Any hints on logging with KISS on an external logger? Yeah, make sure it's an. Yeah, let's go back to here. Make sure it's an open lagger. Don't get an open logger. Somebody was just trying to log FetTech Alpha, and they had an open logger and it was not working out. So you need a open lagger, LAGER. No two G's. LAG, open lagger, like beer, lagger. Make sure it's that. And then set the highest baud rates. I think you need to have the baud rate at 2 million or higher to get a decent logging rate. To actually log the PID loop rate, which in KISS is 1 kilohertz. So you should be okay there. Anti-aliasing. Brandon, I see your stuff. I'm going to say, hey, there's Mr. PID Toolbox himself. I think Brandon's referring to this kind of. Brian, let me know if I got your ratio thing right. I think you set the ratios between the gains and then move them all up at the same time. Still prefer so Brian says, I still prefer the PD balance nomenclature, which was your terminology. Wasn't it, Mark? Yeah, PD balance. Brian was there. So Brian was there the whole time we had the debates on the best way to do sliders. So he witnessed the carnage, and I appreciate his efforts. And I thought it was support. I appreciate your support, Brian, and doing the testing and being objective. And I felt like I had a lot of convincing to do during that. For not everybody, for one person, you know who I'm talking about. We got there, and that person that was very professional and wanted the best for the project and wanted to be open about the best way to get there. He just wanted to make sure we vetted it through. So it was all good in the end. Okay. Kind of backwards speed balance. Here. All right, so I'm getting to the end. I think I don't see any low-hanging fruit. 5 o'clock here, 5:05, so we're a little past the stream. Everybody, appreciate everybody coming on out. If you do have any burning questions I didn't get to, I'll be hanging out here on the Discord, UAV Tech Discord, so you can go to there. So this will be here. You can always send me a message. I don't want to let people hanging. If I didn't see your question, I didn't get to it, didn't answer it fully, you still have some more of a question. Let me know. I do see a tag here in this help. I'll probably be getting to that. So I'll be around there. But appreciate everybody coming out, and I will see you on the next one. Hopefully these are helpful. Like I said, I'm hang out here a little bit. I'm going to work on some whoops right now. Hopefully prepare some whoop content for everybody. So it's winter. Good time for whooping. Thanks everybody again, and I hope this helped.